Have you ever had one of those moments? You push open the door of your mind, ready to face the canvas of your life, only to find four cold, stark words staring back at you. I feel stuck. Look at this little stick man. He stands there before that massive whiteboard, his silhouette looking so small and solitary. There are no tears in his eyes, yet they are filled with an undescribable emptiness, a hollow stare that speaks volumes. This stuck feeling, it isn't necessarily because you haven't been working hard enough. It's that terrifying realization that the path you were once following has suddenly, without warning, vanished beneath your feet. The ink on that board feels like a heavy curse, anchoring his feet to the floor. He gazes at those words as if he were staring into a bottomless canyon, one he has no hope of crossing. The silence in the room is deafening, heavy enough to crush the spirit. Only a small potted plant sits in the corner, a silent witness to his stagnation, while the very air seems to have turned to lead. He tries to lift his head, tries to scan the room for an exit, but everywhere he looks, he finds only more confusion, more white space, more nothingness. This kind of anxiety is a silent killer. It's a war fought without the sound of gunfire. He's trapped in the why me cycle. Why at this exact moment did all my inspiration, all my drive, and all my direction simply evaporate into thin air? He stands there, his body motionless, while internally his world has collapsed 1,000 times over. Friends, if you are currently in this stuck phase, look closely at him, because he is us, past, present, or future. This stillness isn't the end. It is a profound signal from your soul that the old way of doing things simply doesn't work anymore.
He decides to fight back, determined to break through this invisible wall using nothing but raw, brute force. Watch him now. He begins to scratch his head, pacing back and forth, eventually clutching his skull with both hands as if he could literally squeeze a perfect answer out of his brain. His brow furrows deeper and deeper, his breathing grows shallow and ragged, and invisible beads of sweat begin to form from the sheer mental exertion. We know this state all too well, don't we? When we hit a bottleneck, our first instinct is almost always to think harder. We pull all-nighters, we drown ourselves in caffeine, we spiral into a frenzy of worry, convinced that this high-intensity mental burnout is the only price to pay for a breakthrough. But look at that board. No matter how violently he struggles, no matter how much he tortures his own mind, that sentence, I feel stuck, remains as immovable as a mountain. It sits there, silently mocking his desperate attempts to force a solution. His thoughts are like a fly trapped in a glass bottle, beating its wings until they bleed against a transparent barrier it cannot understand. This kind of struggle is a total drain on his energy without providing a single inch of progress. He is trying to use the exact same logic that created the problem to solve the problem, and that, by definition, is a dead-end loop. We often feel that if we just suffer enough, we'll earn a result. But in reality, this busyness is often just a mask for our underlying fear of failure. He feels himself sinking, his shoulders slumping, as the weight of helplessness slowly begins to devour his will to continue. Stop, little stick man. Brute force has never been the key to the doors of wisdom.
Finally, after exhausting every ounce of his mental energy, he stops. The frantic scratching ceases. He stops pacing the floor like a caged animal. Instead, he simply stands before the whiteboard, quiet and still, as if he is finally ready to have a real conversation with his predicament. It is only when the noise of the struggle dies down that the tiny glimmer of inspiration finds a crack to shine through. Look at his eyes. The fear of the problem is fading, replaced by a spark of genuine curiosity. A tiny light bulb flickers to life above his head, the sound of a mind finally shifting gears. He realizes something profound. If I feel stuck is a statement, it is a prison cell with no door. But if he transforms it into a question, it becomes a key. Slowly, almost tentatively, he raises his marker. He reaches out and crosses out that dead-end conclusion that had been haunting him. The sound of the marker clicking against the board is sharp, clear, and definitive, breaking the spell of his paralysis. What is he writing? On that same board, he writes down a brand new question. What is the smallest step I can take right now? This is more than just a sentence. It is a powerful incantation. It immediately strips away the crushing weight of having to fix everything at once. It doesn't demand that he solve the whole puzzle. It only asks him to find one single tiny piece that fits. As he dots that final question mark, his spine straightens just a fraction. The light returns to his eyes. This is the moment of transformation, the shift from a victim mindset to a problem-solver mindset. Truly, all great changes don't start with a grand, earth-shattering plan. They start with the courage to ask a better question.
The stick man we see now is no longer that helpless victim of circumstance. He sits down at his desk, pulling out a notebook that has likely gathered dust for weeks. There is a new kind of intensity in his gaze, of focus that wasn't there before. He is deep in thought, but it's productive thought. He is dissecting that smallest step. What could it be? Is it making that one phone call he's been avoiding? Is it writing just the first line of a new project? Or is it simply tidying his workspace so he can breathe again? He begins to write. Each stroke of his pen feels deliberate and grounded. He isn't just doodling in his notebook. He is sketching out a commitment to himself. This newfound confidence comes from the return of agency, the feeling of being back in the driver's seat, even if he's only moving at 1 mile per hour. He has stopped looking at the terrifying peak of the mountain and has started focusing entirely on the rock right beneath his boot. You will notice that the moment a person begins to define their actions with specificity, their anxiety begins to evaporate. Anxiety thrives in the fog of ambiguity, while confidence is built in the light of the concrete. Every word he writes is a form of healing for the version of himself that was collapsing just moments ago. He pauses occasionally to think, but it's a rhythmic, healthy pause, the pulse of wisdom. He is no longer afraid of the words on the board, because he knows he now possesses the methodology to dismantle any obstacle. Look at him. This is what human potential looks like in its purest form. Don't chase the distant finish line. Define the one small thing you can finish before the sun goes down.
And now, the action begins. He stands up with a sense of purpose, striding toward that whiteboard that once made him tremble with doubt. The marker in his hand no longer feels like a heavy burden. His movements have become light, fluid, and decisive. He begins to execute that smallest step he just planned. And as he moves, watch how the reality on the board begins to shift and change. The cluttered mess of chaotic thoughts is being wiped away, replaced by clarity, structure, and a genuine sense of hope. This feeling, it's like striking the first match in a dark cave. The light might be small, but it undeniably reveals the path ahead. With every line he draws and every task he completes, that once giant problem begins to shrink, to fade, and eventually to dissolve. His posture becomes more expansive, his chest opens up, and that internal strength is now radiating outward, so much so that even the little plant in the corner seems to look greener and more vibrant. He smiles. It isn't a forced grin, but the deep, authentic smile of someone who has weathered the storm and reclaimed the helm of their own ship. He has finally learned the great secret. Action is the only true antidote to anxiety. Once you take that first step, the second step reveals itself naturally. Once you start moving, the universe itself seems to conspire to help you keep going. He doesn't look back at his past failures. His eyes are locked onto the now he is currently creating. Every second of effort is pushing him further away from the version of himself that was stuck and closer to the version that can fly. Finally, he sets the marker down. He takes a few steps back, crossing his arms and contemplating the board one last time. The board is still the same board, and the room is still the same room, but everything has changed. The content on the board is different, yes, but more importantly, and a bright vision for the future. He stands tall, the posture of a victor, the quiet pride of someone who has cultivated an oasis in the middle of a mental desert. He turns around and looks directly at you, through the screen, with a knowing smile. It's as if he's saying, "See, it wasn't as impossible as it felt, was it?"
This short story is a mirror for the cycles we all go through: the stagnation, the struggle, the awakening, the plan, the action, and finally, the transcendence. He is no longer just a simple stick figure. He is you, he is me. He is every soul that refuses to stay down when life tries to pin them to the mat. Keep this image in your mind. When the next problem arises, and it will, don't beg for an ending. Instead, go looking for the question. Turn your dead-end statements into open-ended inquiries. Break your massive burdens into microscopic movements. Life can never truly stick you. Only your own doubt can do that. Now, take a deep breath. Walk up to the door that has been haunting you, and like our friend here, write down your step 1. The moment you begin to move, you have already won. Because all greatness is born in that split second after being stuck, when you decide to get back up and start again.
你是否有过这样的时刻？推开门，面对生活的画布，却发现上面只写着4个冰冷的字：我被卡住了。看着这个小火柴人，他站在那块巨大的白板前，背影显得那么单薄。他的眼神里没有泪水，却携带了那种难以言说的空洞。这种卡住的感觉，并不是因为你不够努力，而是你发现眼前的路突然消失了。白板上的字迹像是某种魔咒，紧紧锁住了他的脚步。他看着那行字，仿佛在看着一个无法逾越的深渊。周围静得可怕，只有那盆小植物在角落里默默陪伴，似乎连空气都凝固了。他试着抬头，试着寻找出口，但视线所及之处，除了困惑还是困惑。这种焦虑是无声的，像是一场没有硝烟的战争。他在想，为什么是我？为什么就在这一刻，我所有的灵感、所有的动力、所有的方向都消失得无影无踪？他站在那里，身体虽然没有动，但内心已经经历了无数次坍塌。朋友们，如果你现在也正处于这种卡住的状态，请看着它，因为也是曾经或现在的我们。这种停滞其实是灵魂在提醒你，旧的模式已经行不通了。他决定反击，决定用蛮力冲破这道墙。你看，他开始抓耳挠腮，双手紧紧抱住脑袋，仿佛只要再用力一点，大脑就能蹦出那个完美的答案。他的眉头锁得越来越紧，呼吸开始变得急促，额头上渗出了看不见的汗水。这种状态我们太熟悉了，不是吗？当我们遇到瓶颈时，第一反应往往是更努力地去想。我们熬夜，我们焦虑，我们反复折磨自己，以为这种高强度的精神内耗就是解决问题的途径。但你看那块白板，无论它如何痛苦的挣扎，那行我被卡住了依旧稳如泰山，甚至在无声地嘲笑他的无能为力。他的思维像是一只进了迷宫的苍蝇，在透明的玻璃上撞得头破血流。这种徒劳的挣扎，除了消耗体力，没有带来任何实质性的改变。他试图用同一种逻辑去解决那个逻辑产生的难题，这本身就是一个死循环。我们总觉得只要足够痛苦就能换来成果，但事实上，很多时候我们只是在用忙碌的假象来掩盖内心的恐惧。他越来越沮丧，肩膀开始垮塌，那种无力感正一点点吞噬他的意志。停下来吧，火柴人，蛮力永远敲不开智慧的大门。
终于，在精疲力竭之后，他停了下来。他不再抓挠头发，不再疯狂地在屋子里踱步，而是静静地站在白板前，像是在和那个困境对话。当喧嚣停止，灵感的微光才有机会照进缝隙。你看，他的眼神变了，不再是那种死盯着问题的恐惧，而是一种探寻。一颗小小的灯泡在他头顶亮起，那是思维转弯声音。他意识到，如果我被卡住了是一个陈述句，那它就是一座监狱；但如果把它转化成一个问题，它就是一把钥匙。他慢慢举起笔， 划掉了那个死气沉沉的结论。他的笔尖在白板上划过，清脆的声音打破了沉寂。他在写什么？他在白板上写下了一个全新的问题：我能迈出的最小的一步是什么？这是一个魔法咒语，它卸下了必须一步到位的沉重枷锁。它不再要求你瞬间解决所有麻烦，它只要求你寻找一个微小的切口。当他写完最后那个问号，他的背挺直了一点点，眼神里重新有了光。这种转变就是从受害者心态向解决者心态的跨越。其实，所有的改变都不是从惊天动地的计划开始的，而是从这个问号开始的。现在的火柴人已经不再是那个手足无措的受害者，他坐在桌前，拿出那本很久没有翻开的笔记本，他的眼神里透着一种前所未有的专注。他在想，那个最小的一步到底是什么？是打一个积累已久的电话，是写下第一行代码，还是仅仅把书桌收拾干净？他开始落笔，每一画都显得那么扎实。他在笔记本上勾勒出的不仅仅是一个动作，而是一个承诺。这种信心来自于对局面的掌控感，哪怕这种掌控只是一丁点大。他不再去想整座山有多重，他只关心脚下那块石头怎么办。你会发现，当一个人开始具体化他的行动时，焦虑就会随之消失。焦虑源于模糊，而信心源于具体。他写下的每一个字都在治愈刚才那个濒临崩溃的自己。他偶尔停下笔思考，那是智慧在有节奏地跳动。他不再害怕白板上的字，因为他知道自己手里握着拆解困境的方法论。朋友们，你看他自信的样子，这才是生命最美的姿态。不要去追求那个遥远的终点，先去定义你今天下午3点前要完成的那件小事。行动开始了，他站起身，大步走向那块曾经让他站立的白板。他手里的笔不再沉重，他的动作变得轻盈而果断。他开始动手，去实现那个最小的一步。随着他的动作，白板上的内容开始发生变化。那些杂乱的思绪被抹去，取而代之的是清晰、条理和希望。这种感觉就像在黑暗中点燃了第一根火柴。虽然火光微弱，但它确实照亮了前方。随着他一笔一画的操作，那个巨大的问题竟然开始缩写、变淡，甚至解体。他的姿势越来越舒展，那种从骨子里透出来的力量感，让周围的盆栽似乎都焕发了生机。他笑了，那是一种经历了风暴后重新掌握舵盘的微笑。他终于明白，行动是治愈一切焦虑的良药。当你迈出第一步，第二步就会自然而然地出现。当你开始移动，全世界都会为你让路。他不再犹豫，不再回头看过去的失败，他的眼里只有正在创造的现在。每一秒钟的努力，都在把那个卡住的自己推向更广阔的天地。这就是进化的过程。痛苦是破茧而出的前奏，而行动是飞翔的开始。最后，他放下了笔，再次退后几步，凝视着这块白板。白板还是那块白板，环境还是那个环境，但上面的内容变了。更重要的是，看白板的人变了。那个曾经写着“我被卡住了”的地方，现在写满了逻辑、方案和对未来的期许。他站得笔直，那是胜利者的姿态，是那种在精神荒原上开垦出绿洲的骄傲。他回过头，微笑着看着屏幕前的你，仿佛在说：“看，其实并不难，对吗？”这个简短的故事讲述的是我们每个人都会经历的周期：困境、挣扎、觉醒、计划、行动，最后是超越。他不再是一个简单的火柴人，他是你，是我，是每一个在逆境中拒绝沉沦的灵魂。记住这个画面，当问题出现时，不要去哀求结果，而去寻找那个问题。把陈述句变成疑问句，把大目标变成微动作。生活从不会真正卡住你，
能卡住你的，只有你对自己能力的怀疑。现在，深呼吸，推开那扇困扰你的大门，像这个火柴人一样，去写下你的第一步吧。只要你开始移动，你就已经赢了。因为所有的伟大，都源于那个卡住之后，依然决定出发的瞬间。